Hello, everyone. It is 11 o'clock. We're going to wait another minute or so more people will join us. Our Zoom webinar has a capacity of 100 attendees, and anyone that is registered after that number, we're going to be sent to watch it on our YouTube channel. So probably just going to wait another minute. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Somebody in our audience posted in chat that there is a really bad echo, and I want to ask if anyone else is having this experience. Ashley, can you hear me okay? Okay, so Sonia might be your phone or your computer. I'm not sure if you've joined us from two places. Yeah, I can see, Sonia, you are registered probably from a laptop and a phone. So I think that happens, you got to mute either the laptop or the phone. Thank you so much for registering for this webinar. This is Francisca Blanc, Advocacy and Outreach Coordinator with Utah Housing Coalition. I just want to let you know that the webinar has a capacity of 100 attendees, and anyone past that number, we're going to be sent to watch it on our YouTube channel. We are very excited to have today a number of panelists that have been doing amazing work this year. Ashley Spadafor-Mirabelli is a dear friend of the coalition, along with Dave Spadafor. And we also have Jonathan Hardy from the state, and later on Clint from Community Partnership of Utah will going to assist me with the presentation. Ashley will going to be our first speaker, and she will going to give us an update on the Utah Commission on Housing Affordability work and their legislative priorities for 2021. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And Dave would love to be here, but he got tied up on another meeting. So the good news is it'll be brief, much more brief than if Dave were presenting. So as a quick update, Dave and I have been working with facilitating a working group, which the Housing Coalition has been a part of and really instrumental. And we've been doing that for the past couple of years. This year, instead of having one large working group, we actually broke off into 3 smaller sub-working groups. Our groups were landlord, and we kind of focused on 3 separate issues. So we had landlord and tenant and eviction. So landlord, tenant issues and evictions, housing production and preservation. And then we also had targeted financial assistance. Where we ended up, and the way that we would work is we would work kind of internally with our smalling working groups, develop some proposals, and then continually bring them up to the commission, to the full commission, and see where they were, how they felt. And when we would get a little bit of direction, we would take that direction, develop the proposal a little bit more, and then come back. So it's been a very open and reiterative process, which has been, I think, really great. Where we stand now is, I'll kind of just break down the 3 different working groups in our proposals and where they are with the commission. Number 1, with our landlord, tenant, and eviction working group, what we devised, and we did this in coordination with the Utah Apartment Association, which was really great, but an statewide expanded mediation program. What we were looking to do was trying to find a win-win scenario where a program to help both tenants and landlords. So what the proposal is, it's a $300,000 ongoing for 3 additional full-time employees and a small amount to cover mediation negotiation gap financings. So any sort of gap finance that usually is not covered by grants and things like that. The idea is Utah Community Action has also been extremely helpful in developing this proposal because they have, because they have such a great proposal. Sorry, technology. I apologize. So the goal of this mediation in this proposal, and we brought it to the full commission, 300,000 ongoing, full-time, 300,000 ongoing, full-time, three full-time employees, and then the mediation negotiation monies. The goal is, right now it's mostly centered along the Wasatch Front, but the goal is with the additional staff is to provide resources to the entire state. So the way that will function is, right now, because of COVID, everything is online and via phone and virtual. So how it would work is all of the current referral centers, whether it's Utah Courts, 211, the AOGs, local CAP agencies, will then coordinate and then help individuals find these services to provide the mediation services. I can kind of go on that, but maybe I'll leave that there. The way that we've left it with the commission is they did want to proceed with this proposal. We actually technically don't need, and Jonathan Hardy pointed this out at the last commission meeting, we don't need legislation. We could just do an appropriation, and then it could go through Department of Workforce Services and through Olene Walker, and then the Utah Community Action could, or the organization could retrieve the funds as a grant from the Olene Walker. But we might want to proceed with legislation, I think, especially to help explain the program and the benefits, and also that it's something that we're working on with the apartment association, so landlords and tenants, and it's a very mutually beneficial program. The other proposals that we brought up are housing production and preservation. Briefly talked about a concept of a surplus property database, and we were loosely talking about how to incentivize affordable housing developments across the state. Senator Andrick took this concept and then added on what he was very interested in, which is this housing reinvestment zone. The details of what this housing reinvestment zone would actually look like, or the details are still in the works, and legislation is currently being drafted. But the goal is to try to incentivize affordable housing development throughout the state in areas where it's close to transportation, close to services, and other the better places to develop affordable housing. Again, we've sat at the table with a couple of the drafting meetings. Our understanding is Senator Andrick is very interested in this concept, and he's currently working on it. I know legislative staff is working on this, and I think the goal is to have a draft ready for the next commission meeting on December 9th. Our last group was targeted financial assistance, and many in this group and listening in, and many of our working group, we've been, last year, if you'll remember, we had 2 components of a statewide rental assistance program. One, which was the McKinney-Vento program, which would focus on families, the McKinney-Vento classified families, and then a general state rental assistance program. While I think we gave it a good shot, it did not pass through the legislature. We didn't get enough support. And so we didn't, it got cut out of the bill at the end of last year's session. I think what our group has been focusing on this year is looking at the emergency COVID dollars that have been going towards rental assistance, and learning from that, are there ways for us to extrapolate some data to show how effective it has been, and then maybe in the future try to propose another state targeted financial assistance program, possibly in the future. But I think largely what we focused on is let's see how the rest of the COVID dollars go, and then the emergency rental assistance is. And then I think the second component of that, and we didn't get to that this session, I think because it's a really big task, is data collection. Can we start to cull together data points to show how effective a rental assistance program could be for the state of Utah, whether, financially, how beneficial a rental assistance program could be for the state. So I think that is the direction of where that group wants to go in the future. And I think our next step should be, but no proposals right now coming towards the commission. So with those three things, I know that there's a rural group and I've been asked to participate in that, and I missed the last meeting, so I can't provide a really great update on that. But I do know that the rural subgroup has asked, I believe, for $500,000 for development assistance. And that was actually part of last year's bill, but it did get cut. I think it made it to the final bill, but it got cut because of the re-shifting of the budget because of COVID. With that, I think that's about it. The next meeting will be December 9th. We'll continue to work. Our group, we're kind of hashing out some of the details in the mediation program, and we're also available and have been at the table for the HRZ discussion. So we'll be a part of those two discussions. And if there's any questions, I'd love to have questions.
Thank you so much, Ashley. If anyone has questions, you can post them in the chat, or you can raise your hand to ask them. I know that Representative Val Potter, I'm not sure if you're going to be attending December 9th meeting, but the new co-chair is Representative Steve Waldrip, and he's actually attending this webinar. So Representative, thank you so much for being in the audience. And you might remember him from the presentation he did at our conference on Rocky Mountain Homes. So he's becoming a familiar face to our coalition. Steve Erickson has a question. Any news on the land use group? Meaning Chris Gambrolo's group.
Yeah. So they had 6 basic proposals, and I don't think what our understanding is, and we've met with Chris Gambroulis a handful of times, and we have a great working relationship with Chris. My understanding is to get anything of his list to come through the commission, Senator Andrick wanted consensus. So he wanted consensus with the city members, with all of the other groups. I don't think there is any consensus now on any of the proposals. I don't think we got to a place where we had detailed proposals. There was broad consensus. I think there's still a lot of continued discussions, but I don't know if there's going to be anything from the land use group coming in separately. Some of the things that Chris was asking for may get looped into the HRZ discussion, and that might be how. So, I think that's one interesting thing that this group and anybody else working on that legislation should look at are, what are the incentives for cities? What are the incentives for states? What are the incentives for developers? We want to make sure there's incentives, but there's also skin in the game. So I think that's going to perhaps kind of get woven into the HRZ discussion. That also, just because, another note to that is, just because Chris Gambroulis's proposals do not come to the commission, that doesn't mean they might not show up elsewhere in the session. And so he might also have, his organizations might have a bill not in the commission.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ashley. And that's very accurate. I mean, we know for sure there are several other bills that we're aware of, which are not directly coming from the commission, like Representative Ward's bill on ADUs. And he did a presentation at the last interim, I think it was Economic Development Interim Committee, and it was well received, and he continues to work with the league on it. Sonia has a question. Can you review once again why the proposal was denied for the McKinney-Vento families?
I honestly think I think it was just the concept of a state rental assistance program. We just couldn't get enough support for it. I think the McKinney-Vento portion had a better shot. Perhaps maybe if we would have started solely with the McKinney-Vento portion, because it was so well defined and so obvious in its and who it would help, how it would help, the amount of students. I think there was 12,000. I think last year was the number approximately, and so I think that part was had more momentum. I think largely it lost momentum because I think there's just not wide agreement on the need for a state rental assistance program from the state legislature. So I think I honestly, personally, and I think along within our group, I think it's a very valid, I think it's a really good first step for us to continue working on. because of the effects would be, I mean, so obvious to helping those families.
Right. So Sonia also mentioned, I think I met Sonia at the in-person meeting we had last year. I'm assuming she's the homeless liaison for the Alpine School District, and she has several McKinney-Vento families who need housing. So Sonia, I think we need to connect maybe after this call to see how we can work together. But at the same time, what we always say, our members in the community, you know, you need to reach out to your state legislators, especially if you work at the Alpine School District, because, you know, they need to hear from you guys. So you can reach out through your the Utah Education Association or you as a resident. Does anyone else have any questions for Ashley? Well, I'm seeing no questions, and I'm sure some of them might come up a little bit later. Thank you so much, Ashley, for your presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks, Dave, as well. Now we have Janet, sorry, my bad. Jonathan Hardy. I'm so sorry.
Fine.
My apologies. We asked Jonathan to give us an update on rental assistance funds from the state. And I mentioned a little bit earlier at the beginning that I'm going to provide an update after Jonathan speaks on the several pots of money that was distributed to the state. So I will have that information. I just got the latest data from your staff. I see most of the people are wondering. So the $20 million is spent. So people are wondering, are we going to get any more money?
It's a great question, and this was a big topic of conversation with the Commission on Housing Affordability. Our last meeting, a motion was made and suggested that several of us approach both the executive and legislative side to seek some more support at a minimum between December 1, which we knew funds were going to be running out the first part of December from the original 20 million. And February 1, knowing that there's a possibility that some federal action could happen, but likely not until later part of January, with the new administration. So there's been a request submitted, and just kind of to give you the lay of the land of how this works with the state's CARES money. The unified command on the executive side helps prioritize that money and works with basically the legislative leadership to approve those expenditures. A lot of the CARES Act money had already been allocated. Now they're just kind of in a reconciliation process to see who's spending their money, who's not spending their money, and how can we get those dollars out the door at a state level to help support these things. I'll say the rental assistance is very well liked and people want to support it more. We've already been able to secure another $2 million. And the Salt Lake County has put $1.5 million of their own CARES Act money into the rental assistance program. So what has happened up till now, we've added a little bit into the landlord side of the program. So those of you who aren't familiar with how this is working, we have a tenant side. So any tenant can work with an agency in the area that's serving their community for rent assistance. They go apply, they meet with the case manager, get the paperwork done, and that agency will work with the landlord to make a payment on their behalf. That's the tenant side of this program. We also have a landlord side where landlords can make a claim to the state on behalf of their residents. It's similar type paperwork that the tenants sign. Both programs, their objective is to make sure rent is covered for people who are negatively impacted by COVID-19. So we have those two programs going with the $1.5 million from the county, and we've added in 1.3 million of that 2 million that we've been allocated. That will get us through December 30th with all of our agencies based on current projections. So everybody feels like they're taking applications all the way through December 30th. I will say all that money has to be for December rent or before. It cannot be used for January rent. So we have another problem come January, but at least for December, we've been able to secure some more resources there. And we're really working hard on this reconciliation process with Unified Command to get some more dollars on the landlord side. We're still accepting applications, but we have right now currently more applications than we have funds for, and that's what we're looking to get the rest of the money for. And I think there's a good possibility that we'll get what's needed. We think it's about $4.5 million that we think will get us through December 30th on the landlord side between what's in the queue and what we anticipate the demand to be. So that's what's happening with on the rental assistance side. We also have part of that request was to put in money again for January 1 through February 1. So that can't be CARES Act money. There's very few resources available, so we're in that queue, but we're going to be competing alongside every other CARES Act program that's ending December 30th, and so that will probably be more of a challenge. Again, that's probably something we are more worried about because we feel pretty good that we're getting through December based on our current demand level, but January forward will be the challenge. Let's hope for some federal stimulus or maybe some other actions that can happen, but the timing of when that can happen is going to be a concern, especially with the eviction moratorium expiring at the end of this month. So those are the updates I have on the rental assistance side. Good news, at least through December 30th. Right. We feel pretty positive about where that's headed, but still some concerns lingering for what after that.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'm just wondering, did the rainy day fund came up in the conversations?
So not a ton yet. And part of that is that the only money that I'm aware of that's allocated right now by the legislature, so absent any other special session or legislative session, is I think there's about $6 million of state general fund, and that's across everything the state can do. And so there's a lot of threading the needle right now on CARES Act money, what can be used with that and what needs to be supported by that state general fund. Certainly there's a lot of conversations on what happens in any other type of appropriation that could be made by the legislature, but as far as I'm aware, nothing has been appropriated absent some type of session where the legislature could approve more that's available besides that $6 million.
Correct. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So without legislative action, nobody can touch the rainy day fund for now. And as you might be aware, yesterday it was a press conference in Washington, D.C., bipartisan support, leadership from Senator Romney to pass some sort of package very, very soon to cover the needs coming in January. And we have hopes. And, we encourage you to, the Senate, it's the most important body right now. So we encourage you to email Senator Romney and Senator Lee to support that. Any other questions for Jonathan? I'm not seeing any. Jonathan, thank you so much. We'd like to thank you and your staff for the amazing work you guys did this year. It's been absolutely insane and difficult, and you guys distributed the funds in the community as fast as you could. So we thank you for that. We appreciate you.
There are a couple questions in the chat, so maybe I could address those.
Okay. Oh.
So the CARES money the state has administered as of before November 30th, all but like $30,000 had been allocated to some program in some way. Now, come November 30th, they were checking back in with all those programs to see where other funds could be made available. So that's the process we're competing in right now, and there's a strong likelihood at least to help us out through December 30th. So yes, we're trying to maximize all our CARES Act opportunities. That is one of the questions that was out there. Davis County, so all of our agencies, we're working on those contract amendments right now. We've notified all of them. All of them have told us with those contract amendments that they will be good through December 30th and will accept applications. Now, I will say it has to be for December rent. So there's going to be a time where agencies kind of run up against this, but we've been able to extend it with this additional money. So all agencies that are utilizing this program, at least at the administrative level, are aware that they are getting additional funds for this. And we're working hard. We have a weekly call with them to make sure that they're all still moving forward on that and problem solving these issues. So if we keep hearing feedback, yes, let us know. We want to make sure that we still have the message out there that anybody can call 211, find their local agency, and still get some help with December's rent.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A. So Peter Korun is asking, is there any additional funding for commercial rental assistance?
For commercial rental assistance?
Like retailers.
Yeah, great question. Not my area where I'm administering it. So I know they went the first, they also got 20, I think they had 25 million or something like that. They've gone through that. So they may be one that where there is more money available, but I couldn't really, I'm not the person to ask for that. So, but it is a great question.
Yeah. Lisa is asking how many Utahns have been helped through CARES rental assistance. Lisa, I'm gonna address this in my presentation, and I'm gonna have Clint helping me a little bit because he provided me with some excellent data from his agencies across the state. Sorry.
So
go back to the chat. Yeah.
There is one question about accepting applications through December 30th. So, and it's from Karen, who's running our program down in Provo. So yes, all of our contracts with agencies allow them to make expenditures in their program through December 30th. That's what the contract amendment. There is kind of a space and time where they can submit for reimbursement from the state after that, but the expenditures need to be made by December 30th, and they have to be for expenses in and before December 30th. So nothing can be for expenses after that.
Right. So I think a lot of the questions that are coming about the CARES Act money that we have spent left over the weekend, Salt Tribune had an article saying that we have a little over 300 million left to be spent by the end of the month, but that's all programs statewide. So what we're able to get for rental assistance is just a small portion of the pie. I mean, we have to think of all of the departments that have needed and spent this money. So I just want to point that out. It's 300 million, but it's not like we can go and ask for 10 million or 15 or 20. It's
right. And this is the same money that buys all the PPE and the testing and all the other things that the state can and will do with this. But we feel pretty confident that for how our programs are set up, we'll be able to take care of the rental assistance demand on our programs through December 30th.
Right. Do you know if all of the CARES money has been allocated for the rest of the month, or they're just still trying to figure out?
We're still trying to get more money on the landlord side. We do have, with the 1.3 million that we added, which was additional money, and the 1.5 million that the county put in that's going directly to Utah Community Action, all of our 1.3 is going to the rest of the state. That has been sufficient for our agencies to say that they can run through December 30th.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Really appreciate you. I'm gonna do my presentation, and I'm gonna invite Clint to assist me if there are any questions. So this is a presentation that Tara Rollins did at the last commission's meeting. So we don't have the latest data on some of these graphics. And we've been sharing this information with Senator Mike Lee's office, and we will send it to Senator Romney. And we also presented it on a national call on Monday with the National Income Housing Coalition. So when we talk about this data specific, we're just trying to give people an idea what's happening statewide. So those are the 211 statewide calls from the beginning of the year until November 9. And as you can see, utility assistance and rent assistance are the highest. And VITA, food, subsidized housing, those are some of the top numbers. Just briefly, in Utah, we had the statewide moratorium enacted by Governor Herbert from April 1st to May 15. And then we also had the CARES Act moratorium, which ended on July 24, but did not protect all tenants. And then on September 4th, we had the National CDC eviction moratorium effective September 4th to December 30th, 2020. Looking at the eviction filings in Utah courts, we compared last year numbers and this year numbers. So if you look at, January and January pretty much stayed the same in February, and in March. February went down, March was the same as last year, and then you can see the sharp drop to April 1st. And between April to July, it increased steadily. And then we had a huge increase on August because that's where the CARES Act moratorium ended, the national one. And then you can also see a significant drop September because of the CDC eviction moratorium. So the cases that we looked, yes, people have been evicted for non-payment of rent during COVID. People have had their leases terminated, which is the latest trend that is happening, not only in our state, but statewide. Even if people are current on rent, their lease is terminated, and it's very, very difficult for them to find decent affordable housing in those areas. This is information that was provided to us by Clint. This is the number of unduplicated households served April 1st, July 14, and then April to 26. And here's a little bit better kind of data looking at it. And I mean, the overall increase since July in the households served is basically 387%, which is quite significant.
Yeah, and Francisca, can I chime
Yeah.
in?
Yeah, of course.
This includes some of the funding sources that Jonathan Hardy was talking about earlier, but it also includes other funding sources. Some agencies reported things like SSBG, CSBG, EFSP. I know we have a lot of acronyms out there. So
Right.
this is kind of an aggregate, not just the CARES Act rental assistance money too.
Right. So if you look at the slide, so you have the portion that have been funded to have housing assistance program and rental assistance program. So HAP is the CARES Act money that came from HUD in the spring. And rental assistance program is the $20 million that was allocated by our lawmakers from the discretionary pot of money, CARES Act money, that became rental assistance program. So out of this $20 million, they also created the landlord assistance program, where the landlords can apply directly to the state on behalf of their tenants. And when they talk about other funding sources, this is private foundations, different other sources that they have in their agencies. I just want to go back to a previous slide. If these are the calls for housing assistance that community action agencies have received. Utah Community Action, which serves Salt County and Tooele County, has received over 15,000 calls from April to October 26. That's unbelievable. Clint, do you want to add anything to your data?
Sure. Just kind of looking at other CARES Act funding too and coordinating. Like you can see that some of our agencies are leveraging other funding sources with the state rental assistance program too. Particularly, you can see Uinta Basin Association of Governments, one of our public community action agencies, and then 5 County Association of Governments at the end. So what is interesting about some of the community action response is that some of these have been integrated with other funding sources, like you said, and that some of these services, for example, at 5 County, leveraging some CSBG CARES Act dollars to have some supplemental services. For example, some of the individuals seeking rental assistance were having access, having trouble getting out. They were quarantined. There were some various barriers. So they offered some home delivery of goods that you can't normally find in a food pantry. So every agency has been slightly different, but I think you can see that every agency has been pretty much swamped with demand and has been trying to leverage any other kind of resources together to try to help their local communities.
Thank you for this, Clint. So this is the housing assistance program, the CARES Act HUD money that was served. So I just received this data right before we started this meeting. So as of December 2nd, almost $8 million was spent to provide help. And these are all of the applicants that were approved in that period of time. I'll be happy to share this presentation with everyone who's interested in having it. So this is the initial $20 million, which basically it has been spent. These are the calls to mediation at Utah Community Action. So Utah Community Action is the only agency in the state that has a mediator, Heather Lester. And she, in this period of time, she received 844 calls for mediation. And as you can see, rental assistance is the highest, and then second is lease termination. And this really speaks of the problem of people that have their leases terminated. It's non-renewal of lease. Either they're month to month or the lease comes to an end and the landlord doesn't want to renew their lease. And this is kind of, as of today, it's still kind of, it has to be changed. We, Ashley and, Jonathan talked about this. So the commission is taking this issue very seriously. Tara did this presentation a little more detailed than what I have. And the commission decided to take action on these items. So we were very pleased with that. And let's see. So I'm looking now at the chat. Okay, so Steve Erickson mentioned in the chat that the 300 million, the amount that was mentioned in the Tribune article, has all been appropriated, but there is still some unspent, according to Jonathan Ball. Yes, I'll be happy to share the presentation. I can actually send it to the whole group. And yeah, check out Casa Milagros. It's the new senior housing. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, well, this was our presentation for today. I want to let you know that we're going to have the Utah Housing Coalition Housing Awards on December 16. We are going to do it online, of course, but we're going to hire somebody to help us putting the production together. And we are very excited about the people who are going to receive the awards. And we're going to send soon a registration link for it. And this is our last coalition meeting for the year. And Tara and I would like to thank you very much for supporting us, as well as the board. We have been working nonstop to make sure the community has the most updated information on what's happening with the evictions, with the moratoriums, with the rental assistance. And we have to say that we broaden our partnerships in the communities, and the people who participate now in meetings it's just incredible. It's, we're part of very diverse, very professional groups that really care about the issue that all of you care. And it's good for us to see that we have so much support. Also, the coalition has received several significant grants to do research in rental assistance and evictions, and to have as a final product a best practice manual, policy manual of rental assistance. I think the federal money have been instrumental on keeping people housed, and this is something that we wanted to show our state lawmakers what kind of difference this kind of program does in our community and helps our economy. And please look forward to some of the emails we're going to come. We're going to start end of year fundraising campaign where you can donate monthly or you can make one-time donation. Everything goes to our programs that we do, the education, the outreach. And once again, thank you so much, and please stay in touch with us. Take care.